Welcome. Hit the like button. Hit subscribe. Hit the bell. Thank you for listening. This is Joey. Let's get started. You know, it used to be a trope whenever old or less advanced, less technologically advanced societies are ever depicted in film or media, they often adhere to the village elder, right? The tribal elder, right? And sometimes these tribes or these villages, they would have real backwards traditions, right? Like, we got to throw a virgin in the volcano so we can have good crops this year, right? Now, in reality, a virgin might have fell into a volcano one year and that happened to be the year they had good crops. But ever since then, they've been throwing random virgins into volcanoes to make sure they get good crops, right? Or they'll do a rain dance. And these are big stereotypical examples that I'm using to show you a trope. I'm not trying to depict anybody's people in a certain way or not. But the point I'm making is this. The elder of the village, the person who's respected simply because he's older, and it's assumed that because he's older, he has more experiences, right? Which is often true. That elder who got listened to by everybody in the village or everybody in the tribe made a move based off of false causality. He looked and saw a virgin fall in a volcano. He realized that the crops were good the following year. Maybe the next year they didn't throw a virgin in the volcano and the crops happened to not be as good. So his mind goes, we got to start throwing virgins in the volcano if we want to get good crops. He links one to the other, right? When they really could be coincidental. But because he's the village elder, because he's the tribal elder, no one's allowed to give a second thought, right? Same with the rain dance. Same with anything where they do something by tradition that we later come to find out through science or through study and ain't got nothing to do with, damn rain dance gonna make it rain. It's the condensation of the clouds, right? We're going to salt the clouds if we're going to try to make it rain, right? But no, you got people over in the corner doing a damn rain dance because in their mind, it's always worked for them. And they'll tell you, we've done rain dances sometimes for days and it finally works. Okay, are you sure you guys just weren't dancing until it happened to rain, right? And this isn't to shit on anybody's religion or spirituality. This is just saying, how do we know that's the cause? Now, let me bring this around to what this topic is about today. Whenever bad things happen to black people in the black community, we are usually instantly bombarded with a lot of false causality. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I was listening to a podcast today from a brother who was an elder. And whenever somebody gets shot by the police, whenever some nigga gets booked for something that he shouldn't have been booked for, or beat up by the cops, or humiliated, or something bad happens to black folks, he goes on this tangent to scream that it's because black people don't have a culture. Right. And I was listening to a podcast today from him, and he was saying, young black man that got shot by the police today, it's because we don't have a culture. Now, I want you to watch the trick sleight of hand that I give you. Somebody in his mentions, it was a live podcast, said, dang, it only happens to black folks. And he quickly dismissed that. He said, no. Black folks aren't the only ones getting killed by police. That's bullshit. White folks are the main ones getting killed by police. White folks are getting killed by police left and right, but you just don't hear about it because it doesn't have a racial narrative, right? He was going hard on his MAGA hat, right? And I said, okay, So that's one point he made. So black people do not get killed by police in any higher fashion than white folks or anybody else. That's the argument he made. Argument number one, right? Not less than 10 minutes later, the man makes a completely contradictory argument and says, they ain't shooting up white folks or Mexicans like that. See, it just happened to black folks because black folks don't have a culture. Now, it's an easy trap to fall into an argument with somebody who makes a statement like that to try and prove that your people do have a culture, right? But if you listen to what he just said before he made that statement, you'll realize that he's all over the damn map. Because at first you just said that everybody's getting killed the same. It's just a matter of the police are tripping. Next, you're saying that there definitely is a difference, that black people are being treated worse, and it's because of our lack of culture. Which is it? One sounds like Uchi Wally Wally, the other sounds like one goddamn mic. And this is the problem that we've been dealing with our quote unquote elders for years. You see, he's one of these people that loves to make this old nigga argument. And I don't like to shit on old people because they old, because that's it's an old mentality where all of a sudden, once a black man gets beyond about 50 years old, something happens in his mind. Once a black man in America becomes about 50 years old, his mind has an interesting relationship with reality. And he tends to misremember or conveniently re-remember himself and his society at his youth being perfect. You hear older black men. See, the same older black men from the baby boomer era that'll tell you that nobody dropped the ball in the black community will then turn right around and accuse you of dropping the ball in the black community. You, the young black man and young black woman just now coming up on the scene, having inherited all this bullshit and have never even gotten the ball, are somehow being blamed for dropping the ball. Older black folks love to make it sound like, especially older black men, love to make it sound once they hit 50, they completely forget what it was like being a young black person. You notice that? You notice that? All of a sudden, when a black man turns 50, he want to talk about, see, the reason why the police is beating y'all up is because y'all don't pick up your pants and you walk around with them dreadlocks. And, like they weren't getting beat in wingtip shoes and double-breasted suits when they was younger. Like we didn't see you niggas getting beat up in fully tailored suits in sepia tone. Like we didn't see that shit. Like the police was running through black neighborhoods. Let's see if these niggas are wearing sneakers. Like, oh, they all got Bruno Molly's on. We gotta get out of here. Like that's not how that shit happened at all. It's not how that shit happened at all. When a black man turns above 50, all of a sudden, his era of black folks had it all together. Niggas was just doing perfectly all right. And then somehow, now think about this real quick. It's 2021. Now, this older black man is chastising 18-year-old black people, 20-year-old black people, 30-year-old black people. Now, you was 20-something in the 60s. 60s to 70s. It's 10 years. Well, actually, let's just say 60. Let's say 64. That's when shit really, really got popping politically with black. Let's say 64. 64 to 74, 10 years. 74 to 84, 20 years. 84 to 94, 30 years. Now, why did I just go 30 years? Because 94, 92, the 90s, older black folks love to act like the 90s never happened. Every older black man that turns 50 all of a sudden thinks that he's Ozzie Davis, right? He's just always been an upright, upstanding citizen. Black folks ain't never had drugs in their community. Black folks ain't never had gangs in their community. None of this stuff ever happened until young niggas came along, according to these niggas. Chicago been a goddamn gangster city since the day it was formed. Not even just with niggas. Al Capone, Chicago been a gangster city. But all of a sudden now, gang violence is out of control because it's not you gang banging no more. See, what starts to happen, everybody else understands this. Everybody else understands this. The world don't really change. You change. You hear football players and athletes talk about this all the time. When I was a young up-and-coming football player, I was running into things, banging heads and flying and making tackles. Then all of a sudden, you look around one day when you've been in the game for 5-10 years and, ooh, these hits look violent. The hits didn't change. These niggas didn't start hitting harder. The helmets didn't get weaker. You changed. You got older. You got slower. You got softer. And I'm not even saying this to insult. You know, we get more mature. We start to develop things to lose. Our perspectives change. Our desires change. You don't have the same fight in you for things that you used to have. You've seen things come around on a cycle and things come and go a number of times where you kind of know where things are going to end up. So it doesn't really feel like it's worth fighting for. You change, but the world don't change. There is a very, very, very big disconnect. All the different beefs going on with black folks, Black American versus African, immigrant versus native, man versus woman with black folks. But the biggest battle, the biggest, oldest beef in the black community, well, I should say the biggest, most vicious beef, is old versus young. And see, this particular YouTuber, he likes to make it seem like it's the young who pick on the old. It's the young who pick at the old because people be talking shit to them. No, it's the old who let the young down. See, people like to make, oh, nobody dropped the ball. Nobody dropped the ball. Oh, yeah, there's definitely a ball dropped. Well, you can't pinpoint the time when the ball was dropped. Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. See, the tricky thing about it, a ball is a bad example. To drop the ball is a bad example. The black baby boomer generation didn't necessarily drop the ball as much as it did never hand the ball over. That's where the actual problem is. It's worse than dropping the ball. I could understand if niggas dropped the ball. It's very, very, very high stake. Black folks weren't even supposed to have the ball. It's very, very high stakes to try to survive as a black person in this country, especially the further back you go in time, right? So you can understand if somebody dropped the ball. The thing that you don't understand, that a lot of older black folks don't understand, or they get it, but they try to pretend like they don't get it, is you niggas never handed the ball over. You never handed the ball over. There ain't been no damn formal or informal passing of the baton to the next generation of black people. There ain't never been nothing like that. And I'm not even talking about from a civil rights perspective. We're not talking about none of that shit. We're talking about just straight up black people as a community. Most black dads, I don't want to say most black dads, most black men like that, who have this attitude of, they start to, even in their language, you can tell where their mind's coming from, because they don't even say, when they talk about black people, they don't even say we. They don't even say we, us. They say shit like them, y'all. Y'all be. When you start talking about y'all, when you talk about black people as a black person, you have officially fucking checked out. I don't care what you're saying. You could have the goddamn key to success behind what you're saying. I'm still gonna be like, this nigga said y'all. So whatever he's planning, he ain't involved in what he's planning for us. Older black people, particularly older black men, usually older black women just kind of mind their business. Older black women have a similar mentality, but they usually act it out by just not being involved with black society as they get older, right? They just kind of go off to themselves. Their husband and passed on. They got their little savings account. You know what I'm saying? They're going to sell the house and keep it moving. They're going to move somewhere nice. They feel the same way as older black men do, but they don't got that hatred, that venom in them that a lot of older black men got for the black community. It's time to keep it real. A lot of older black folks, particularly older black men, compete with the next generation. Older black folks are the only people you will ever meet. And I'm not going to say all, but again, it's enough to be a stereotype. Older black folks are the only people you will ever meet that'll be happy that they're doing better than their kids. An older black person's house words, the mantra that nigga live by is, ain't nobody ever tell me nothing. Think about that for a minute. You've been through some shit. What's the number one thing you need from your parents is guidance, right? Guidance. You persevered somehow without the guidance and support of your parents. Somehow, right? Allegedly, because, you know, people love to lie about their origin stories and how they made it, right? You didn't get the support you felt like you needed from your parents when you were coming up. And you've resented it all your life, but somehow you made it to wherever you're at. And when I say made it, we'll get to that later, because that's subjective, right? Air quotes on the words made it. But instead of doing what the young kids say today and breaking generational curses and correcting something that you knew even as an adolescent wasn't right. Like, damn, my parents ain't even supporting me. They just kind of had me and now I'm working in the farm. Instead of trying to correct that in your bloodline, you've taken that as permission to kick the shit downhill to the next generation of your own offspring. That's what ain't nobody ever tell me nothing means. It means no one told me nothing and I turned out fine, so I ain't going to tell them nothing. Which, when you think about it, is literally the dumbest thing you can do as a people. Like that's literally the definition of retarding yourself, right? If you keep downgrading yourself to where every generation is less than the previous one, you're retarding yourself. Like, imagine having a kid and just deciding, I'm not going to teach them shit. They have to figure out how to hold that bottle on their own. Nigga, you crawl, good luck. At school, it's shit. Nigga fails in life. See, that ain't happened to me. I made it, nigga. That's the dumbass logic. See, that's nigger mentality. We love to call things slave mentality. Really, we say slave mentality to just brush off when black folks are frustrated with things, right? We just, you just got slave mentality. Just brush people off. But actual nigger mentality is seeing your own offspring come up and wishing to do better than your own offspring. Like, you know, your kids are supposed to be better than you, right? You look at white folks, they got the opposite problem. White folks be supporting their kids too much. They be complaining about, everybody gets a trophy. They be complaining about it. They be worried their kids are going to be soft. They be pampering them so much. But let's get back to causality, because it's a little fucked up that we like to paint this picture like black folks, quote unquote, back in the day, right, had it all together. And then somewhere along the lines, somehow, even though you're 18, 20, 30 years old, somehow you're responsible for the degradation of the black community that took place 60 goddamn years ago. This is right around, if you're 20 years old, this is around the time you're supposed to inherit whatever the previous generation has produced. This is around that time where you're supposed to step in and pick up where the previous generation left off. This is the replacement period. If you're 20, 21 years old, now's the time. We're on the cusp of one of the largest Mbibo wealth transfers. That's where, you got a party passing wealth down in a generation while they're still alive. Like, your dad didn't die and leave you a will. He's literally kicking you over stocks and shit right now. He's handing you reins to the company business right now. White parents all across the country on all different levels of the economic scale. Rich white parents are handing their kids over stocks. Middle class white parents are hooking their kids up with jobs at their company. Blue collar white parents are, here, son, here's the keys to the F-150. You've been an intern here at the family business for 10 years now. Here you go. And black parents, ain't nobody ever tell me nothing. You're on your own. You're on your own for the day you're born. You might even be born with if you're a black kid, you might even be born with a phone bill in your name by the time you're born. You start off with a minus and no support. None. People almost be looking at you resentful when you're trying to make it. They're like, oh, this nigga out here trying to go to college and shit. I didn't go to college. You don't need that college shit. That's how, not all, but that's keeping it real. That's how a lot of black parents do. When you first start trying to go to college or do something or be something that they don't directly know what you're talking about or doing, they be hating on you. You over there wasting that money and going to college. So you got to block all that shit out. You know you're not getting no tuition money. Shit. You know you're not getting no tuition money. If you're black, if you're a black kid in America and you're trying to get into college and you're not a super genius, like black folks won't invest their time in you unless they think it's going to be a sure thing that's going to be a return on their investment. If you're not clearly a super genius, and in most cases, even if you are, or if you don't perform exceptionally well in a sport to where you'll get tuition, to where you'll get a scholarship, so don't nobody got to pay. Ain't nobody even trying to hear you talking about going to college. In Asian families, the whole family's planning on you to get into college. You won't even see an Asian person that go to a college with a full-time job. They live at home with 16 relatives. Their rent be $110 a month. And their insurance is paid for. And all they got to do is go to school. The white kids, you might catch a white kid with a job on campus or something, or, you know what I mean? 50-50. But the parents are still supporting the shit out of that kid. Hey, son. Hey, I see you're slipping in your grades. Don't think you're coming back here and gonna slack off. All right? We're putting up on this tuition and we expect you to graduate. So that's the shit you get from your white parents. If you black American and you get into college, that's just some shit you did. Hey, girl, how's it going over there? All right, then you over there doing that college thing. Okay. They'll check back in when you finna graduate. Oh, she about to be a doctor. But if you're not doing something that they can directly say, oh, you're about to be a doctor. Oh, he's about to be a lawyer. If I can't say that, that nigga just goes to college. He's just in school. And low key, when you hear the tone at how black parents talk about it, they really just be talking about it like it's just you out there having an experience. Like, yeah, you out there wasting time. Like, yeah, he out there doing college. That's exactly how niggas will say the shit. You out there doing college. Huh? They'll be proud you got into it. Don't get me wrong. They'll be happy you got into it because it's always a good bragging point for a parent. Oh, he's in college, but they think in their mind, I'm done. I done raised you. Being a black parent, let's keep it real. If we're going to do all this shit talking about black youth, being a black parent for a long time. Let's look at our comedy. Let's look at our TV shows. Let's look at our media. Let's look at what niggas used to say. Being a black parent for a long time was about doing the bare legally required minimums until your ass turned 18. And if it's a son, not even 18. Once that nigga gets a little bit big and y'all get in an argument, that nigga gotta go. Oh, he don't got no sports abilities? He's just over here big? Oh, no, he gotta go. Let him go join a gang or something or figure out his rap career or something. I thought he was gonna be an athlete. It's like the 300. If you ain't clearly an athlete by like 12, they throw you in a volcano. Ain't nobody putting up on your tuition. So if you're a black kid and you're trying to get into college, you got to face all of that by yourself. Not only do you not get support 9 times out of 10, niggas will drag you down. Niggas be hating on you in your family, right? And then they'll turn around and tell you, after all that, how come black students aren't performing as well or don't take college as seriously as Asian students? And there goes that false causality again, because your numbers aren't up to par with what the Asian students and the white students are doing. It got to be that you don't want it enough. They don't want to look at that support, right? They don't want to look at that part because then that blames them. They don't want to look at the parent, what you come from. Well, how come the black students aren't performing as well as the whites and Asians? Well, because the black student got 2 damn jobs and he's working an overnight shift. He's still wearing his uniform while he's taking the test. He got to help pay rent. Got to get his uncle out of jail. Like, the niggas don't support you. Now, you see, if I start to call that out, guess what this older black generation will say? Well, we didn't have the money to be taking y'all into some fancy college. That's what it really is. You can't keep it real with us and say, hey, man, we're poor. Don't try to make it seem like we don't want it bad enough. You can't afford to support me in college. Can't even afford my books. But rather than just keeping it real and telling me that, you're going to make it seem like I'm wasting my time doing college or I'm doing something dumb. It's always some hating shit. We're the only group of people where the previous generation be hating on the next generation. Immigrants don't do that shit. Immigrants come here knowing, okay, I used to be a doctor in my country, but I'm in America. I'm starting over. It's over for me. I'm about to be a cab driver. I'm about to be working at a laundromat. I got enough money from my old country to open up this 7-Eleven. But my kid's gonna get on. I'm doing all this bullshit I'm doing. All this thank you, come again. All this shoveling shit. And doing all this janitorial stuff that's way beneath me. I'm doing this to stack up for my kid. And they're gonna make the family proud again. Niggas, hell with them kids, man. Oh, man, he ain't shit. Man, he out there in basketball camp. Now, keep in mind, if a nigga shows some promise at sports, all of a sudden that nigga get involved. Now he hanging with Mr. Cooper. Now all of us, half the time, he don't even know how to play basketball. The kid just got good on his own. He's learning from the community center, from the father figures at his school and shit, but you want to interject yourself. Now all of a sudden you care. Because that's a direct, you can see where the money come in. If the nigga can play football or if he can play basketball. You can see how that adds up to money. He tell you want to be a neuroscientist. You don't even know what the hell that means. We are experts in telling our kids how they can't do shit. It ain't even gotta be our kid. Any black person listening to this right now, if you have ever told niggas what you was planning on doing, you already know that person can have no idea how that business works. You could be like, man, I'm about to become an accountant. I'm about to go to school and be an accountant. Oh man, that's a lot of math, man. So man, you sure you want to do that, man? It's a really, really, really competitive business, man. I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I don't know if you can do that. So right off the top, your parent telling you, they don't really believe in you. Right? Oh, there's talented people doing that. You sure you want to do that? Now, if you ask that same parent, how do I become an accountant? What does an accountant do? They wouldn't be able to tell you shit. Oh, they do some stuff with money. But because you said you wanted to be an accountant, now this person's the foremost expert on how you can't do the shit. What you're really dealing with when you deal with niggas like this, once they hit 50, once they hit 60, is they know that, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful because I would hope to be older someday, right? They're starting to look at the twilight of their life. Now, 50 and 60 years old, if you're in good health, you're not about to die any day, but you have more days behind you than in front of you. And you start to reflect on the trajectory of your life. And if you're black, you start to reflect on the trajectory of the fate of your people. Because you know a lot of the stuff you go through is simply because you're a black dude. Right? And you go, damn, wonder if niggas is going to be getting their ass kicked 50 years in the future from now. 100 years in the future from now. 1,000 years. If I jumped 1,000 years in the future, they're going to have just high-tech robots just whooping our ass. Like it's already getting to that, right? So you start to get embittered because you realize that the whole life cycle of the black person is going to be suffering and humiliation forever. But rather than reflect on opportunities that you and your generation missed as a people to change things for the next generation, like how the previous generations did for you, rather than really think about that and go, damn, there's some things we missed, there's some things we did. You rearrange reality to make it seem like you did all these things, right? Like you accomplished all these wonderful things and we messed it up. That's why we're in this position. Look at that mental stretch you just did. This is why you always have black folks who are from, I'm going to use the term loosely, the civil rights era, right? Niggas that were alive during the 60s, right? They always come in trying to chastise black people about how much worse they had it back then. And I'll give it to you. Those were a lot more overtly racist times. But there are some shots that we can trade. I don't remember y'all having to deal with like goddamn drones blowing people up. The government didn't have as good of an ability to make, state-sanctioned murders right on camera look like they were old. See, this is the thing that a lot of older black people don't understand. The 60s civil rights era was based around exposing to regular, decent white folks, exposing how the sausage was made that provided them with comfort on the nice white side of town. See, the average white person back then had no idea what was going on the nigger side of town. So all the beatings, all the dogs and the fire hoses just for standing there and protesting, they knew they were going to catch them ass whoopings, and that was the intent, was to expose the over-aggression of white supremacy. And that worked because it was such a shock to decent white folks' senses to go, oh my God, that was a pregnant woman. It was such a shock to their senses to go, oh my God, how am I helping this? But in 2021, you get to see niggas get killed on TV and online every day. They figured out a solution to that. They've just numbed people to the idea of killing black people on camera. If you would have played, hell, if Emmett Till were killed today, the exact same, if right now the Emmett Till murder came out, there was a VHS tape or something that came out. Oh, we actually got footage of Emmett Till being murdered. Most people would watch that and not even bat an eye. It would look tame by today's comparison. You got the same people showing up swinging from trees in 2021. So all that, it was harder shit. Like, this is what always blows my mind. If you grew up in the 1960s, when shit was so much worse, right? Which I'm not saying it wasn't worse in many ways. You ever notice that the generation that grew up in the 60s is the only black generation that chastises and belittles the younger generation, us? It's not like the black folks from the 40s and the black folks from the 20s and the black folks from, like the goddamn Red Summer 1919, right? It's not like those generations come along and chastise the 1960s generation, right? Like, oh, you niggas had guns. Y'all came back from World War II. Y'all got it good, right? It's not like that. Those groups ever chastised them. They all believed in a gradual progression through the struggle, right? It's only the 1960s generation that thinks that they did everything themselves. And that's not even just a black thing. Keep in mind, the baby boomer generation as a whole is an insolent little spoiled self-grandizing generation who, as a whole, again, not just black folks, as a whole, a big problem with our society is that the baby boomer generation won't get the fuck out the way. This isn't even the first time this has happened with the baby boomer generation. Like, it's not like the millennial generation or generation X and Y, or excuse me, generation Y. It's not like this is the next subordinate generation and there's a conflict because the boomers won't move over, right? This isn't a case of parent versus child. The baby boomer generation has been clutching on to the reins of power and influence in society for so long. Millennials are more like your grandkid. So we never talk about how baby boomers basically killed off Generation X. Baby boomers killed Generation X. They ruined Generation X. Messed up the North American Free Trade Agreement. Ain't no jobs. We never talk about that. Generation X is a lost generation. And the baby boomers are doing the exact same thing to the millennials. They're vampires. They suck up all the energy. They suck up all the resources. They suck up all the opportunity, and they won't leave. Young people know what I'm talking about. When you think about during the height of this job crisis, when it was super hard to find a job a few years ago, and all you would see is old ass people working them jobs. And they would talk about how hard it was for an older person. It's so humiliating for this older person to be working as a bagger at this grocery store, which I know sucks. But you're not given this. The other part that doesn't get told about that is you're causing a log jam. You won't get out of the system. And don't nobody feel sorry for you because you're the ones that made the system suck. You won't get out of the system and get out of the way so that the next generation can start prospering, taking up jobs, getting education, making changes, getting involved in politics. Look at how many people. And see, it's starting to show now when things are going bad. Look at your congressmen. Look at your senators. Look at your political office leaders. They're all like Bernie Sanders age, Nancy Pelosi age. They're out of touch with what's going on. They don't have the mindset of what the average American is going through. They're not only detached because of their age, but they're detached because of their money. they're doddering and out of just like out of sorts. Like when the older people in your family start to kind of lose it a little bit. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not like one day they're perfectly a sound mind and body, and then the next day they're slurring their speech and confused. It happens slowly over time, almost to the point where you don't realize it until one day you realize that it's accumulated so much that you can't ignore it. Look at Joe Biden. Our president might have dementia. And he's the guy that they used to replace the other guy that they said was unhinged. Our president be forgetting what he's talking about mid-speech in front of millions of people. Hey, the American people, and we believe in the Constitution, and we remember the quote with, the thing. He's just saying anything. And keep in mind, it's not like Joe Biden, when he had all his faculties, was John F. fucking Kennedy. Joe Biden is the guy that would tell people in wheelchairs to stand up, right? He's the guy that described Barack Obama as black but clean, right? So it's not like this guy was some sort of smooth operator. And now the man's got dementia. And I'm not trying to make fun of anybody's mental health or their age, but let's keep it real. Look at the people who are leading the country. They're old, decrepit skeletons that don't care about nothing but themselves and their legacies. That's a baby boomer. Do you know what they call the generation before baby boomers? The greatest generation. Because them niggas did some shit. They did some shit. If you're a baby boomer, see, most generations usually get described by what they do. When they came in, the baby boomer generation, you're described as you were just born after, like you were born because shit got so good. The greatest generation had stopped the war. Shit was gonna be so good that they just started fucking all the time, and they had a bunch of babies. So you're just the byproduct of a good time. You've never done nothing. And this is why baby boomers, see, the real thing about baby boomers is they're just super numerous. They're super numerous. And they've been around at the most prosperous time in the most prosperous modern time in the country. And they know how to promote themselves. So, of course, all the wonderful things you hear about the baby boomer generation, it's because they're the ones talking about it. We were against the Vietnam War. Some of you niggas was against the Vietnam War. There's a lot of false attribution to why the Vietnam War didn't go the way they wanted it to. It's not like all of America was like, we're against war because we're the baby boomer generation, man. The soldiers that were out there fighting in the war were baby boomers. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's not like these guys had these free flowing ideas that were just so far thinking. Nah. Even with the civil rights movement. Yeah, we're the baby boomer generation. We challenged racism. No, you didn't. Y'all niggas shot Martin Luther King. You didn't pass no damn civil rights bills until black folks started burning the country down. So no, you're not some forward-thinking, evolved group that changed the country. You were just born a lot because people were happy the war was over after World War II. That's it. That's it. It's like being somebody important's kid. That's Michael Jordan's son. All right, is he Michael Jordan? Hell no. Okay, then why are we talking about him? Unless he can get me to meet Michael Jordan. All right, I'm a baby boomer. All right, okay, nigga. You the greatest generation's son, right? Yeah. Can you get me his autograph? Cause he did some shit. He did some shit. Being high and going to Woodstock don't mean shit. Like, just being real. Like it wasn't like the cultural juggernaut that they make it seem like it was. Like, it really changed some stuff. It was just some niggas that went to a concert. Like, when you really, really look at the baby boomer generation and look and say, what you guys actually did? Not much. Just kind of benefited. So when you're a kid and you read a fairy tale and they lived happily ever after, the baby boomers lived in that pocket of happily ever after. That's all they did. And they never want to let it go. That's why when other generations come, they starve them out. Generation X never got an opportunity to come up. The millennials, you're in the same position. Look who's in charge of making sure you don't get tuition reimbursement. Look who's in charge of making sure you don't get Medicare for all. The people who are all on Medicare for them, because all the baby boomers are old and they're all on Medicare and Medicaid now, they don't want you to get that shit. The baby boomer generation kind of reminds me of like, and especially the black ones, of like the Big Lebowski. You remember the dude that was in the wheelchair that was like, oh, I got here by hard work and you're lazy and you need to work like me. And by the end of the movie, spoiler alert, it's an old movie. End of the movie, you find out nigga's a total fraud. His money comes from his wife. he ain't nothing like he said he was. And let me get back to the black generation specifically. Because I wanted to be fair and point out that this self-grandization, that this narcissism, that this convenient reconfiguration of history isn't just a black baby boomer thing. It's a baby boomer thing. They elevated themselves through their stories to make themselves seem like they were doing way better and they're way better people, way more accomplished people than they really are. Now let me go in on the black ones specifically, because this is something that's always bothered me. Every older black person who's walking around today, who was around in the 60s, loves to make you think that they was just on that front line of marching and fighting dogs and fire hoses and they was just a freedom fighter through and through. With the way you hear older black folks talk, you would have swore that they fought Bull Connor themselves, right? And then you think about it and you realize that back in them days, only a handful of black folks was really riding like that. Most black folks was wishing Martin Luther King would shut the fuck up. They was calling him a troublemaker. Go look at how the black church was treating Martin Luther King at first, before it started working. Go look at how the average black person really thought of the Panthers. Because you know what people don't like? People love all that blackity black stuff in hindsight. It's fun to watch it from the 60s, watching it now and go, damn, them brothers was bad. But you know what niggas didn't like back then? Making the spot hot. They didn't like MLK. MLK was making it hard on them. For damn, every time you come over here marching, now they come back with the police. Now we got all... People love the Malcolm X speeches now, but back then... See, the ones that was really in them photos, really marching, really riding, they don't get no notoriety. We just make it seem like black folks was doing that. Most niggas wanted all them people to go away. Why you think all them leaders, all them movements always got stopped by somebody who was one of us double-crossing them? Now, I'm not saying that we didn't love MLK. I'm not saying we didn't love Malcolm X or we didn't appreciate the Panthers. But most niggas just want to go to work. And the same niggas that you hear talking today chastising you, like they was just on the front lines of black empowerment. That's the same nigga that when he was 20 years old back in the movement, he was probably just rioting. He stayed his ass at home. Shit, I ain't going out there to get killed by no police. But 2021, let them tell you, every last one of them was a freedom fighter. Niggas be lying. And you can tell a lot of them was coons back then because they got coon mentality now. Ain't no way you was some beating your chest warrior Black Panther back in the 60s, but then now in 2021, you talking about, shit, y'all can't be talking back to the police. Y'all can't be talking back to the police. Yeah, man, they killed that little girl while she was asleep. She wasn't talking back. They hit her with a flare gun and her body caught fire and the grandma tried to pat her body out so she wouldn't be burned alive, burned to death. And they beat the grandmother and said she resisted arrest. Y'all can't be talking back to the police. There's no way that nigga in 2021 was Kama Mustafa in 1964. There's just no way. And if it was, I fear to know what they did to break you down. Always fighting the last war and shit. Coming in, older black folks will come in, seeing what young black folks is going through, and be like, this ain't no oppression. We used to have to go through blah, 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 blah. Like shit don't evolve. Like you expect in 2021 for the cops to still be coming out with fire hoses and dogs. Like we don't got no new technology. Like, did you not see they got robot dogs that can explode now? Like it's not a game. They got video technology, and we've all seen it where they swap the faces and stuff. It's being used as fun and games on apps right now. It's all fun and games until they use that technology to make an innocent person that got shot by the cops look guilty. Got a lot of technology. I mean, just older black person, just you tell me. Do you think they've gotten better after 30 plus years since the civil rights movement at misinformation and infiltration of protests and all that kind of stuff and extrajudicial killings? You think they got better at that? Or do you think once the 60s was over, they said, let's just decommission all these programs? No more COINTELPRO. It worked. We're done. Or do you think they got better at this stuff? Because if you look at their guns that they used to use on you guys in the 60s, like all them Bushmasters and shit they would use to snipe the leaders and everything. And you look at the stuff they got now. I mean, you can see a clear upgrade, right? So do you think that they just left all that other stuff in the dust and they haven't evolved at all? Because that's the part that always trips me out, right? Is that niggas from the 60s talking about COINTELPRO and shit that was out before the internet. Like everything is the same. Y'all don't know the meaning of rough. Y'all don't know what it's like to have J. Edgar Hoover write a demerit in your permanent record. Like, nigga, they got the internet now. Everything you say gets recorded. Your phone is recording you at home. Your TV is recording you at home. If you're singing, you remind me of my Jeep in your living room in front of your TV, and then you go open up your computer in your bedroom and it's giving you a deal on a Jeep Cherokee, you're like, oh, shit. So it's laughable hearing older people from the civil rights era with all the opportunities you guys had. There's no way in the world half the shit you guys did back then we could do now. Imagine somebody trying to do the Panther patrols in 2021. You get lit up. You show up, 10 of your buddies in some freshly cropped afros and some leather jackets with a shotgun. And you show up and they got the goddamn SWAT team out there. Hey, man, you picking on that brother? We sure are, nigga. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. Like, the Panthers wouldn't work like that in 2021. You see how quickly these marches and demonstrations get infiltrated where they can make them look like riots so that they can move in and crack everybody's head? They're too sophisticated with that shit now. It's a whole different world. So comparing the shit you was doing and trying to make it seem like why ain't we doing it is fucking laughable. Also, not to ruin your little parade, but let's keep it real. You got compromised back then. You got compromised back then. That era's version of Al Sharpton, that era's version of Jesse Jackson, all the little fake writers, all the little fake activists moved right in, took your whole movement and swooped it off course and turned it into a big integrate. And this is another thing. I don't even want to say the word integration. This is another way black folks get caught in a word trap. We love to have this debate. Martin versus Malcolm, integration versus segregate. You never had integration. We never had integration. as a true option. What you had was assimilation as an option. Integration and assimilation are two completely different goddamn things. They're similar, but they're executed differently. If we would have integrated, some of our programs and systems would have been brought into theirs. Some of their programs and systems would have been brought into ours. Our black teachers that had been in our black cities and our black schools and our black side of town would have been in some of their white schools, and they would have brought white teachers. They didn't do none of that shit. They took anything that you had going and they said that shit is decommissioned. We're going to give you a white version of everything now. We're going to bring in white teachers to keep an eye on you niggas. Don't you bring none of your nigger teachers over our schools. We don't want to hear what they got to say. We're going to take all your best athletes and put them in our sporting events. We're not giving you none of our athletes, and we're certainly not promoting any of your nigger programs. No, give us Satchel Paige and get the hell out of here. You didn't get integrated, nothing. We're going to bring in, because the very next year after the Civil Rights Movement got the Civil Rights Act, the very next year came the Immigration Act. We're going to force feed you immigrant business. We're going to make it damn near impossible for you to start small businesses in your communities now. And we're going to use this permanent void that we've created, this wedge that we've created where there is no black business in black communities. And we're going to implant immigrant businesses. And we're going to use this power that we have to leverage that to make immigrants come into the country. Come into the country, we'll let you set up shop in black communities because we don't let them set up shop in their own communities. You let that shit happen. You let that shit. So here we go again to dropping the ball, because you can't blame some 20-year-old nigga who's buying hot Cheetos in a Korean-owned convenience store in his community. You can't blame that shit on him. That convenience store has been there since he was born. That's your job, old man. I thought you was fighting the damn power. That's your job. The next generation inherits the bullshit you tolerated. And we got to start from there. So asking me, how come you ain't got, how come you ain't da-da-da-da-da? Nigga, I just got born. That shit you were supposed to do. That's the part these niggas don't get. They don't hold themselves to the same standards they're trying to put us up to. Another thing they forget, black elders, y'all seem to conveniently forget. Like I said, black elders love to act like they don't remember the 90s. You was born in the 60s. You was 18, 20 years old in 64, out there fighting the power. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Then the 70s came and you niggas all went to disco and was dating white women, but we won't talk about that. The 80s came, y'all niggas all got on coke and shit. And by the 90s came, a lot of y'all, shit. This is why a lot of older black folks don't like to talk about no damn 90s. They love to, how come the younger generation don't respect the elders? Because in the 90s, them elders was on crack out there doing God knows what in them parking lots for crack money. It's hard to respect somebody's parent when you see them doing something strange for some change. That nigga can't send you to your room afterwards. It's very awkward. You had a whole generations of young black people from the 90s that had to raise themselves. Or worst, had to raise their parents. Go live with their grandparents from, live back east or live down south. This whole generation of young black kids who had no parents. And now you want them to respect them elders that weren't there. Like, that doesn't make any kind of sense. There's a gap. I really feel like the baby boomer generation, the black people, you guys have been smelling your own bullshit for too long. And you guys have been watching them sepia tone American History Network videos of MLK marching up and down the street and looking dignified. And you guys love to wax poetic. You guys love to talk about that shit like that's all y'all did. You leave out 30, 40 years of history afterwards to pretend like you don't know how we got to this conclusion where there's beef between the two generations. Your previous generation didn't do you like that. I'll be dying. I ain't never seen no documentation I have never found any documentation of like Frederick Douglass shouting down Booker T. Washington. Oh, shut up, nigga. I had it tough. Shit, man. You know what they did to me? I was a real slave, nigga. You just an indentured servant. You'll never find no documentation of that. You'll have documentation of different black activists disagreeing or even being a little chiding towards each other. But you'll never catch one where you got a previous generation dismissing the plight outright of the next generation because it's not like what the previous generation went through. That'd be ridiculous, right? Imagine actual slaves, black people from the actual whip on your back slave generation telling black sharecroppers who are getting tricked out of their land and wealth, oh man, y'all need to quit complaining. They ain't whipping you, is they? When's the last time you had dogs chase you? You ever wade in the water? Did you ever wade in the water? Well, that's what I thought. All you got to do is fill a quota. Shit, at least you get paid. You know, like only the greedy ass, selfish ass, narcissistic ass black baby boomer generation does that. And a lot of it is from guilt. You know how people be defensive when they know they fucked up, right? Hey, man, you messed up my car. Well, shit, man, you shouldn't have me. People get real defensive because they know they're wrong. They don't want to just be like, you know what, man, my bad. I'm sorry. The baby boomer generation knows they did drop the ball. I just told you how. You had America right where you wanted it, and you pushed for assimilation. Not because you knew how it was going to turn out, but because you let the wrong leaders take over the movement. And then, I'm not going to make it seem like it was one timely mistake that selected our fate for now. Then there's been a slow, steady degradation of the little progress you made. All the civil rights era laws have been walked back and watered down and co-opted by other groups. All them black leaders that you elevated from them eras, they're on these congressional black caucuses. They're in the mix. All the remaining black civil rights leaders and activists, those are the people that the Democratic Party uses to soothe and hypnotize the black community. We don't listen when Bill Clinton, we don't give a damn about that saxophone on Arsenio Hall. We don't listen to when Bill Clinton come out and say something. Bill Clinton knew how to speak through the black community. I'm going to go to the black church and I'm going to go to, and then them niggas will come tell us, no, you know Bill Clinton's good peoples. That's y'all that did that. That's your generation. When you tell your people, think about it like this. If we're in a castle and we're fortified in the castle, and your job is the person at the drawbridge gate to see if it's friend or foe. That's your one job. And you tell us it's a friend and we open the gate and it's a goddamn foe with an army. How is that my fault that I dropped it? You dropped the ball. You started all kinds of rainbow coalitions and peoples of color and all this kind of shit that let them walk back our specific justice claim. You did that shit. That's all baby boomer right there. Confused the hell out of black folks with all this phenobi-dobby Pan-Africanism to where now in 2021, most African Americans don't even really see themselves as African American or black American. So when black American issues come up, they think, hey, me, I'm a Wakandan. You confuse the country. So you're talking about we don't have a culture, but you've confused the world and the country so much about black American identity that when George Floyd gets killed, you got Democrats in Congress wearing kente cloth because they think we're Ghanaians. That's you niggas. Got this awkward ass, uncomfortable ass sense of a need to belong to something. So you want to be an African so bad, so you just make up story. Like really, when you look at Pan-Africanism, which comes from that generation, 99% of that shit's made up and confusing. It made matters worse in 2021. Unity's cool and all, but you don't gotta make shit up. How you make up somebody's origin story? because you needed a pep talk. You needed to feel like you weren't, quote unquote, just a slave. No, I'm a king and queen in Africa. And you told the rest of niggas that. Confused the shit out of black folks. Got black folks running to Africa, kissing Africans' asses and shit. And Africans don't even half the time don't even like us. That's your generation. We haven't even inherited this motherfucker yet. But again, we have to start having real causality. I've been trying to hold this one back for a long time because even after all that I said, I don't like to pick on previous generations of black people because whatever choices you made, good or bad, were from the circumstances you were already in. Right? It's kind of messed up. Hey, man, how come you guys was just marching? Ain't like we had no guns, nigga, like we wanted to do. So I understand a lot of the choices you made, even if they were bad choices in hindsight. You knew what you knew at the time. This isn't about shitting on the previous generation, even though I kind of did a little bit. But what it is about is giving you the same treatment you give us. Because when I do that, you'll realize you don't even match up to your own standards. You're a myth. You're not some freedom fighter, tough guy force like you like to recreate yourself into being. A lot of the stuff in civil rights movements, it was a specific kind of black person. It was mostly students. It was young students and shit. And a lot of street niggas. There was a whole lot of ass whoopings going on in the actual civil rights movement that they filter out and try to promote the nonviolence part. But that was not the majority of black people. Not by a long shot. But every single black person that's from that era gets to act like they was all Rosa Parks. I give you a pass in that you were young at the time and you didn't know shit. But don't sit here and act like we dropped the ball. We never got past the ball. Y'all snatched the ball out of our hand like Carlton Banks and then did a big ass bank shot over the backboard and lost the game. We couldn't have dropped the ball. We just got here. If you're 20 years old, if you're up to 30 years old, if you're up to 25, 30 years old as a young black person, ain't no way you could have had no effect on anything that you're living in right now. You just got in it. You got 20-year-old kids who've never known anything but war in Afghanistan. They're 18, 20 years old enough to go in and fight in Afghanistan. Now you got people enlisting to go fight in Iraq and Afghanistan who was born during 9/11. Now, would it make sense to blame them for why we're in Iraq and Afghanistan? Oh, these young kids, now we're in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm from 1964. We weren't in Iraq and Afghanistan then. So no, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. They were born into the shit. You know who was around before 9/11? Yo ass. You can be blamed for the fallout of 9/11 because if you were an adult American citizen and a voter when 9/11 happened, we all got taken for a damn ride and we was all supporting these wars at the time. Let's not front. We were supporting these wars at the time. See, this is an example of how the older generation can mess it up for the younger generation and then blame the younger generation for itself. We okayed going into these wars because we knew we weren't going to ever have to pay for it. We're not enlisting. It's going to be some young kid somewhere enlisting, some young poor kid from the inner city or from the middle of America. And he's going to be paying that ultimate sacrifice. They don't even bother us. So we didn't even take time to even really figure out if what they were saying was true. We just went along with the war. That's my generation's fault. If you're some young kid coming up and you're about to go enlist to go to Afghanistan or some shit, that's because my generation didn't call bullshit and put enough pressure on the politicians to go, no, we're not jumping in this war. I can't blame you for, this nigga out here enlisted in the war. I built that environment for you. So if you're in the 90s and an environment's been built for you where ain't nothing but drugs and poverty and projects, nigga, that's your fault. If you want to blame people. Like, so there definitely is a dropping of the ball. Nobody dropped the ball. Yo, there definitely was a dropping of the ball. There was a hogging of the ball. If we were going to use a ball reference, it's not like you tried to pass it to me or then you dropped it. It's like the ball went to you and you held on to that bitch on the court for 24 seconds and got a shot clock violation. And then the ref tried to come up and get the ball from you so he can give it to the other team and get the game going, and you still won't let it go. And then you got 2 technicals and got ejected. That's basically what happened with the black baby boom generation and the black movement. Y'all wouldn't let the shit go. Who have you groomed? Who's the next? Okay, let's say Bobby Rush is in Chicago. He's a congressman in Illinois, right? Now, Bobby Rush used to be a Black Panther. Okay, Bobby Rush is in his 60s and his 70s. Who's Bobby Rush's protege for when Bobby Rush one day drops dead or becomes where he retires or whatever? Who is his protege? Who's the influential black dude in his area that everybody respects, that's been under his wing and under his tutelage, that he's showing the game to? Nobody. Bobby Rush is going to retire. He's going to fight for that Congress seat until he can no longer walk, breathe, or move. If another young black person came and challenged for that spot, he'd fight him tooth and nail with everything he had. Because Bobby Rush is thinking about Bobby Rush. He ain't thinking about black folks like that. He thinking about Bobby Rush's career. And that's the way a lot of these older black folks, I'm telling you, once these black men turn 50, they have the potential in their mind. They think that they finally made it to whiteness. Because once a black male turns 50 or looks like he's 50 or 60, once a black male looks older, he's no longer looked at as a threat by white society. And he can feel that pressure come off. He feels like he can kind of walk around a little freer. And suddenly, and this is the danger of people united in struggle. If people are united in struggle, all I got to do in order to divide you is ease up the struggle on one group of people. Once that small group of people no longer feels that struggle that connected you, they'll no longer identify with you anymore because your problems aren't their problems. Go look up the Bacon's Rebellion. That's how you do it. That's how you divide and conquer. You treat one side a little bit nicer than the other so that the side you're treating nicer no longer identifies with the rest of the group. And the side that you're not treating nicer has resentment for the side you're treating nicer. Welcome to Divisionville, population U. So when you're an older black man and you hit 50, 60 years old, you're no longer getting pulled over by the cops for random reasons. You're no longer getting harassed or followed in the store. You don't identify with the younger black male no more. Now you see the younger black male and you think, that nigga's up to something. He needs to pull his pants up. What's up with them? With those people? You turn into an old white dude. And all it takes is for you to just stop getting hounded and harassed for a couple of years. And you completely forget what it's like for the rest of us that still got to go through that shit. when you was 18 and 20 and they was hemming your ass up in front of your mom's house because you wouldn't stay on the white side of town, and they saying that you're out there causing trouble and they whooping your ass, it's no justice, no peace. When it's my turn, all of a sudden it's stop resisting. We got to be real careful with that. We got to be real careful with that. Whenever something happens in black society, I notice too many, usually older black people, but there are younger black coons too, that want to jump in and try to see it as an opportunity to try to gain brownie points and a pat on the head from white society by kind of letting it be known, I don't agree with these niggas. Right? You ever notice that? Nobody asks these people their opinion, but they always hop in and interject. Hey, y'all say Black Lives Matter, but why are we out here gangbanging? It's like, what white friend of yours told you to say that? Get the hell out of here, Doug. Get out of here, bro. Wasting our time with them dumbass comments and questions when you know the answer. It's only a travesty when it's your generation. We can't really glean nothing from them. You're better off as a young black person. You're better off learning about the civil rights movement through historians. I know it's going to be whitewashed. They're going to leave details out. But the older black generation ain't never going to tell you the truth, or they don't really rock with us like that. They kind of see themselves as some separate holy class that's above the rest of black society. And you can't really get nothing from that. Plus, like I said before, the game has changed. The game's evolved. So a lot of them old school tactics, all that Mr. Smith goes to Washington shit, a lot of that shit won't work. But in closing, yeah, I'm not trying to shit on anybody's generation, but if we're going to try to sit here, and it's very insincere. And for those of y'all who listen to this show, I don't got to say his name. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very insincere to have an entire show arguing that didn't nobody drop the ball, and then the rest of your show is accusing younger black folks of dropping the ball. You didn't even get us the ball for us to drop. As black people, we got to be honest. As a whole, we don't have shit to hand off to our kids, but the struggle. And that's including if you got a good job. You can't hand that good job to your kid. You have to tell him the same thing you tell other black people when they try to get a job at your company. Go apply. Let's keep it real. A lot of us, we don't have shit to hand to our kids. You might have some will money or something, but that ain't shit. A lot of us don't have shit to hand to their kids. And so we cover it up by trying to make the kid feel bad for even expecting some shit. It's all a cover up. You know you dropped the ball. You know you're not proud of the older black civil rights leaders that are in Congress that are supposed to be running things for black communities all across America. You know you're not happy with that pick of the litter you got. John Lewis's and shit and Jim Clyburn's. You know you're not happy with that pick of the... Half them niggas can't even read. Jim Clyburn can barely read and write. You know you're not proud of the stuff that they do. How are you going to tell me that your generation didn't drop the ball and affect my generation when you niggas are the ones who passed the 94 crime bill? Y'all want to have a quick sidebar about political capital? Here's what happens. Political capital is notoriety or credibility that you gain from doing something in politics or outside of politics with a group of people that you can then cash in the form of doing something that group of people may not like about you, but you've built up this credibility, right? Now, let's use an example. You got the Congressional Black Caucus in the House. who are these figures of black activism and black presence in politics, formed under Shirley Chisholm, founded under Shirley Chisholm. And it was supposed to be this big symbol of black political power. So what does Joe Biden do when he needs to pass the 94 crime bill and he needs cover fire? He doesn't want to be looked at like the guy who passed the most racist bill. He goes to the Congressional Black Caucus and gets cover fire. I need you guys to sign on to this bill. If you guys all sign on, you guys have the political heft. You guys have the political credit to pull this off. It's going to deplete your credit account because your black community is no longer going to trust you. It's going to resent you. But you've built up enough credibility and I want to use it now. So now whenever you call Joe Biden out on the 94 crime bill, something that's quoted by him does everything except for lynch people for jaywalking, right? Black people. You call him out for that, and the first words out of Joe Biden's mouth is going to be the Congressional Black Caucus were the first people to sign on. Those are my niggers. Now what? And as a black person, ain't shit you can say back to that. That's just like that scene in The Wire. Your own boy gave you up. And we ain't have to torture his ass neither. Just sold you out for chicken change. That's the beta. That's the black baby June boomer 1964 blackity black power generation right there. Y'all signed that shit into law. That was the you niggas need to pull your pants up bill. So there you have direct legislation, direct legislative harm from the older black generation to the younger black generation. If you caught a charge back in 94, remember when I said baby boomers destroyed Generation X? If you caught a charge in the black community in 94, you might get out in 3 years. That's how crazy the time was they were giving people for stuff. You get 30 and you would get football numbers. You can't even call the football numbers because if football, hell, man, you play Madden 21-0, that's skunk, that's house rules. They weren't giving niggas 21 years, they're giving niggas 30, 40 years. They giving niggas New England Patriot football numbers. And that was from the I'm black and I'm proud generation that did that. Didn't put no job provisions in the bill. Didn't put no money in the bill, just punishment. To a group of people that already had no jobs, that was already taking penitentiary chances. You just made the penitentiary bigger. What if you had Generation X? What if you had a bunch of Generation X people in Congress and they co-signed a bill that cut black people's Medicaid? You know how mad the black baby boomer generation would be at Generation X for that? And yet y'all don't understand how y'all did us dirty? Been asleep at the wheel since the 60s. Just been asleep at the wheel. Sell out the communities to the lowest bidder. We'll vote for anybody black. Not realizing that them niggas have been selling us out time and time again. So no, in conclusion, it's not true that nobody dropped the ball. Your generation, the black baby boomer generation, you niggas dropped the ball. Everything that you accomplished has been slowly eroded, swiftly eroded, not even slowly. You provided goo gobs of political capital to political enemies for no gain. You got literally nothing out of the transaction. Multiple times. Rainbow Coalition. You didn't sign on every other minority group onto civil rights bills. You didn't fight vehemently to protect them bills, to say, hey, this is for a legacy. Goddamn Lyndon B. Johnson said it more full-throatedly with his chest out that this is for black Americans than any black American since then. You don't got no real lion, no warrior for no black causes out there that got any kind of power or say with either political party. You get people like Cornel West. You get Jim Clyburn. So no, yeah, you don't get to point all them. You don't get to pull rank on us no more with that shit. Y'all definitely did drop the ball, and we've been trying desperately to scramble and get that bitch back since y'all dropped it. Y'all was trying to be white society's friends and shit the whole time, and it didn't work out. Your heart broke. You over there making Michael Eric Dyson pleas for acceptance. My beloved, why don't you love me? All that weird shit. You got the young black folks confused doing Black Lives Matter public die-ins and shit, trying to do the same sucker-ass demonstrations y'all was doing towards the end of the movement. And finally, when that George Floyd shit popped off, niggas remembered who they were and started doing regular nigga shit to get the results they wanted. We went back to the Rodney King model. Quite effective. Quite effective. But yeah, you definitely did drop the ball. We understand, but y'all definitely did drop the ball. And you guys can't blame us for shit because we just inherited your fuck ups. This is all your fault. We're coming into your inadequacies right now, and we're going to try to right the ship. Now, back to causality. If I'm making this whole argument that we didn't drop a ball because we never got the ball, and that it's not something dumb like lack of culture for why we get treated the way we do, then what is the reason? And this goes back to dropping the ball. The real reason, I'm going to make a whole separate episode about this. The real reason why black people get treated like shit in this country and in this world, really, is lack of political power. Now, I'll pick that up on the next episode.